Hello. So today we're going to be discussing gender and sex reflection about this topic, which is, I want to preface, quite a controversial and very personal subject. I do not believe that I am fit to discuss such a heavy topic that has gone viral and is something that's quite debatable and something that could clearly go and ruin someone's reputation by just merely making an opinion, a tweet, or sharing some thoughts that are just, logical or just one's own speculation. So this topic of determining or the idea of one's gender and how we could be able to try to, facilitate in our own minds and thoughts what category a person could fit in based off certain questions, like as was seen by the BEM sex role inventory, that activity that I was able to fill out with those questions about if I was jumpy sometimes or if I would exhibit certain traits that were more leaning towards the female side, feminine side. So those were quite some interesting questions. And to start off with our first question, just to get into it, is this an adequate measure of gender? So I might be a bit repetitive on this idea, but to just ask questions about if you're this or that, people are complicated. So if a person has a certain personality or they give off a certain vibe, or they have a certain inclination, or they just have certain connectivities and relationships towards certain ideas or ideals, it's just pertinent to a person's upbringing in nature, nurture. There's certain inborn character that a person has. Of course, it's determined. And to say that, oh, I like doing this or I do that, and I should be exhibiting this type of feministic or, masculine type of gender trait, that's something that is understandable. I mean, if a person likes jumping up, for the example I gave, that might seem a little more feminine. Men are a little, perhaps, like we've seen in the previous, discussion that we were assigned to fulfill Fisher's, Helen Fisher, the doctor Helen Fisher's speech that she was talking about this idea. I think it was quite informative that, person never had a baby boy or girl. They don't realize that we are clearly different. And if a person is lending more towards being a little more thorough thinking, that's something in the men's department. So with regards to women who are a little more creative, imaginative, and have this web connective thinking, and there's differences between the men and the women. So to just measure with these questions, my point is, yeah, there is a good adequate scale that you could start to gauge whether you're leaning more towards this or that. Obviously, a person who's more jumpy will lean more towards being more girly or feministic, and it's not a contradiction. I answered a lot of those questions. I may have leaned towards a more feministic position in certain questions because I like writing notes to make people happy and to write nice things for people. A lot of time I agree with that type of particular question. That might have been less of a masculine thing to do, less of a manly thing. Men are not so into that. But if a person develops themselves and realizes the importance of just writing a note or getting excited sometimes, it's not in contradiction with your gender. It might lean more towards a certain area that women usually share and are good at, but it doesn't go into contradiction with a person's gender. So to answer that first question, yeah, I think it is an adequate measure to have such a measure like that. But now moving on to just the other questions that we have over here. So I think that would answer as well the idea of, now we know the value of the scale. Yeah, there are questions that will show us perhaps that we are more leaning towards one type of gender or another. But that doesn't mean, of course, that we have a scale that shows us we have a certain affinity towards one route. We just get excited or we do certain things that might be leaning more towards the feministic side of us because we have certain characteristics and personalities that are unique. Everyone is, right? That's what they say about people. You have a certain character. Where does that character come from? A lot of women, like Dr. Helen Fisher was quoting, that women have the power of speech. So even though I'm speaking right now and I have good auditory or a good eloquence in being able to convey a message, I hope I do, but that might be shared by women. So am I now feministic? So there is a certain value and measure to the scale. It just doesn't mean necessarily that I am automatically under such a guideline of or criteria that I'm fulfilling the feministic characteristic traits. I mean, that's just something that we all give and take and have certain receiving of certain traits. So to go further, so should that mean that the gender should be measured as a dichotomous variable? To have this like split, at the end of the day, you could have certain feelings leaning towards one side or another. So at the end of the day, to have a split, a person shouldn't be undecided. A person, I'm not one to talk about such a personal issue, that if people decide on their own that they want to split themselves and feel that they're exhibiting certain traits that are leaning towards one way or another, that's very true that you might be leaning towards one trait or another. You're jumpy, or you like writing nice notes, or you're involved in certain things. You don't like guns, right? One of those questions, all those different types of questions, a person could have some split in terms of leaning more towards that masculine in some areas and then saying that they should be feministic in other. So that might be potentially a split, but it doesn't necessarily just confirm what you are. Moving forwards, people just to let out the idea that people just rant, I believe I'm this and that. At the end of the day, to determine that what you are, at the end of the day, like Dr. Helen Fisher said, there's clear sexual reproductive features that we have that show what we are, and at the end of the day, you can't start going against that. So I did see all these types of inborn things within me that I think may have reflected feministic sides or masculine sides that were not in contradiction. At the end of the day, you could lean towards either side. But at the end of the day, it's very important that a person has to face the facts. If a person is feminine, female or male, if they're exhibiting certain characteristics, at the end of the day, you know what you are. At the end of the day, the person knows what they are, and you want to do all these transplants or consider that, people could just decide what they are. At the end of the day, God created us, or whatever you want to say created us, whatever belief system you follow. At the end of the day, there's a certain upbringing that we've had since the beginning of creation, of Adam and Eve and man and woman, and this is the way the world runs. Just like the quote that the professor brought, Hughes or something like that, Steve, that women, then they are keeping the world going round. So there's a certain clarity that they should have in their role that they're playing. So that's why I feel, in terms of reconciling that measurement and that scale and how it's understandable to have certain characteristics that might lean towards certain areas and would be measured as such, but yet doesn't go against the fact that you're a split person, or you think that you're different than what you really are. You can't deny the facts. So now, with regards to the other points of the looking at measuring gender and the importance of that, and how we see this very importantly in sports, and it's just, of course, yes, gender, you might want to say, is unclear to some people, but it's something that I'm not in a position of authority. I can't just decide what people are, and I can't just deny what people are when they have certain claims. So if a person's being withheld from being able to participate in certain areas, the best thing we could do is try to accommodate them. Like, hence we have women's leagues and men's leagues. But at the end of the day, we can't start, mixing things, and of course, as much as we can't start mixing things and deny things, but yet we can't withhold people from what they want to be involved in. So a person has to try to accommodate with a certain, certain limitations and understanding and being cooperative to both sides. And we want to try to, relate that there is a certain way that we can measure that people lean towards one side or another, but yet then you are what you are, and the person has to face those facts. But at the end of the day, a person has to be respectful. That's very important. Anyways, thank you.